It is Wednesday, the 21st of September 2022. Good afternoon, Namibia, and a very warm welcome to today's discussion, coming to you live from the Government Information Center here in the capital. I am your host, Hileni Feleposa-Munyela, and alongside my two studio guests, we'll be keeping you company between now and 4 o'clock. Today, we are discussing collective agreements and wage orders. And I'm joined in the studio by Ms. Onem Janima, Director of Labor Services in the Ministry of Labor, Industrial Relations and Employment Creation. Good afternoon, Director, and welcome back to the Government Information Center.
Thank you very much for having us. We are happy to be here.
All right. We are also joined by Mr. Sho Henok Amkwa. He's a Deputy Director of the Division Labor Inspectorate in the same ministry. Good afternoon, Deputy Director, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you back at the Government Information Center.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you.
All right. All right. Now, as per my introductory remarks, we are discussing collective agreement and wage orders. And Ms. Janima, we start with you. Maybe you can start off by explaining to us what collective agreements are.
Thank you very much. When one speaks of a collective agreement, it's a sectoral written agreement between the employees, representative, which is a trade union, and employer. That collective agreement outlines many of the terms and conditions of employment pertaining to the well-being of the employees that are in the bargaining unit. This term really covered issues pertaining to hours of employment, wage, and any other working condition and other benefit could be rights and privileges and duties of everyone involved, and also responsibilities and obligations of the employers and the employees as well. It's really a sectoral agreement that workers, representative and employers within specific sectors come together and discuss issues pertaining to their operations based on term of condition of employment and agree. And that is what we call a collective agreement.
All right. Briefly put, Mr. Amkwa, is there a distinct agreement? Is there a distinct between a collective agreement on minimum wages and wage orders?
Yes, thank you very much, Helen. Indeed, there is a distinctive between the collective agreements and wage order. Basically, the collective agreement is the product of collective bargaining after the parties to the collective agreement have negotiated or bargaining in order to come up with the collective agreement that is previously alluded that it's a formal written by the director. So the agreement, it's basically to come up with the minimum condition of employment and also the minimum wages and also the basic condition of employment. While the wage orders, in terms of the section 13 of the Labor Act, it's clearly stipulated or give authority to the minister responsible for Ministry of Labor to come up with the wage order after considering the report and the recommendation from the wage commissioner that made the investigation on the situation of a specific industry to come up with on the minimum wage and the condition of employment.
Well put, Mr. Amkwa. Ms. Janima, how many collective agreements for minimum wages and wage orders do we have within the parameters of the Republic of Namibia, and in what sectors do they exist in?
Currently, we have 3 collective agreements that are gazetted, which is in the agriculture sector, construction, as well as security. And then we only have 1 wage order currently in Namibia, which is in the domestic workers sector. And those, in total, we could then say we have 3 collective agreements and 1 wage order in Namibia currently. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. What is the purpose of setting up collective agreements for minimum wages, really, if one may ask? Ms. Mujanima, sorry.
Thank you very much. The purpose of setting up a collective agreement or a minimum wage, it's really to allow the parties, especially in terms of collective agreement, to allow the parties to come together and then discuss issues pertaining to the wages and condition of employment and agree. Issues that are governing the two employment relationships, issues that, pertaining to this particular sector on the particular industry and enterprises. This improvement are brought about to make sure that it addresses the issue of reducing poverty, the issue of improving the living standard of the affected employees, and as well as to just make sure that they really maintain a peaceful industrial and social peace within that particular specific sector. At the same time, it really makes it easy to govern a sector that have a collective agreement, because whatever it is not a gentleman agreement that you have said you were supposed to give me an increment when I was supposed to have how many days and so forth. All these issues and procedures are nicely articulated in the collective agreement, and therefore make it easy to govern. So the other issue is also that it promotes industrial peace, because these two people comes to the table. It also promotes dialogue between these two parties, and at the same time making sure that the income levels of those that are within the bargaining unit really and in that particular sector, it's brought to the level where they can live, have a decent life and be able to cater for their family. So really the purpose is just to make sure that it brings about parties to discuss their wages and basic condition in a harmonious relationship and a comfortable zone. Yeah.
Okay. I stick with you, Ms. Njanima. Based on what you were just explaining right now, I'd like to find out, the collective agreement, is it more likely to be suitable for an individual employment, say for example, like between a domestic worker and their employer, or between a company and their employees, like multiple staff?
When we speak of a sectoral collective agreement, we are speaking of a sector agreement, whereby the employee, a trade union that is representing employee within, let's say like we have in construction, they comes then together, they agree with the employers in the sector and agree on what should be remunerated, a wheelbarrow pusher, what should be, looking at the degree of responsibility of works and the value for money of that particular responsibilities. I think that's why it's having the word collective. So that is what it means. So individual agreement, this between me and my domestic worker, this one is just a contract of employment, which I and her will discuss based on the wage order that is governing the sector, or on the law that is there as a labor legislative law that guide the two of us. So I think I have tried to explain whether for the two, an employer and an employee, is a collective agreement or not. So the word collective play a big role in the whole agreement.
Indeed. Thank you, Ms. Mujanima, for defining and explaining that clearly. Mr. Ankwa, Section 14 of the Labor Act number 11 of 2007 highlights about the exemptions from a wage order. Can you briefly explain to us what this means?
Thank you very much. Basically, the exemption, the word exemption, it's basically means to be excused from a certain provision in the wage order. So that section provides exemption. It clearly indicate or outline that any person may apply to be exempted, to be excused from the provision of the wage order. For any provision of the wage order, if a person feels that I need to be exempted, to be set free, I have the right to apply to the minister to be excused from any provision of the wage order. However, the minister should satisfy himself first to ensure that that exemption it's not affecting the employees or is not less favorable than the condition stipulated in the wage order, or there is a special circumstances or a condition that exists to the wage order that is not subjected or not affecting the employee negatively. So then it's when he can be granted the exemption in terms of that section of the Labor Act.
All right. I stick with you, Mr. Ankwa. Can a labor inspector issue a compliance order in a case of non-compliance with the collective agreements in a minimum wage?
Yeah, the question is, the answer is, it's basically no. The labor inspector cannot issue a compliance order in the context of the collective agreement or the collective agreement, simply because the collective agreement has its own provision. Yeah. However, if the labor inspector has a reasonable ground to believe that the employer contravenes a provision of the Labor Act other than the content of the collective agreement, it's only when he can issue the compliance or the compliance order in terms of Section 126. That means there is any other provisions, or maybe the employer contravenes any provision or section which is in the Labor Act, not the content of the collective agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Namibia, as per the norm, this is a conversation of national concern, and at 1:30, we'll be inviting you, our viewers and listeners, to take part in this conversation and add your voice to it. You can also follow the discussion on our social media platforms, as we are streaming it live on Facebook. We are at Ministry of Information and Communications Technology Republic of Namibia, and on YouTube we are at MICT Namibia. That's our handle right there. Alternatively, at 1:30, you can call us in the studio, and the call-in number is 061 400 397. The call-in number is 061 400 397. As we continue with the conversation here in the studio, whilst waiting for you, our viewers and listeners, to make your contribution and ask your questions. The experts are in the studio. We continue with the conversation, yes. Ms. Njanima, what should be done if any party of the collective agreement does not comply with the agreement, or with the agreement in place?
As I have indicated, that a collective agreement, it's an agreement within employers and employee in the particular sector. It is really their document, hence an agreement, hence within the collective agreement sets procedures on how to deal with any other misunderstanding. And therefore, Section 73 of the Labor Act provide for every collective agreement to have a section that give provisions and procedures on how to deal with dispute resolutions as well as on the arbitrations procedures. So these are the informations, a section within every collective agreement that guides on what should be done should one of the party it's not complying with what is specified. And that is done for every dispute that arises from this collective agreement, either in terms of how it is interpreted, either in terms of how it is applied, or on how it is enforced by either labor inspectors, because we are responsible to also make sure that we inspect to see if these two parties that comes together and agreed are really complying to what they have agreed within their collective agreement. Even though AMCO has indicated that we do not then have the power to issue a compliance order, but we have the power to inspect and enforce that collective agreement. So in that, really, these procedures of making sure that every collective agreement have a clause that speak about dispute resolutions is done in accordance with Chapter 8, Part C or D, or of the same Act, unless there is a provision that is made in an initial collective agreement that stipulates otherwise. Now, if a collective agreement do not have that provisions, so, or any clause or procedures on how to deal with a dispute that is emanating from the collective agreement, or any of the party, then the two parties, which is the employer or the employees, did not honor any of the resolutions that have arisen from the dispute, or then the administrative process then have to come in. That means they are going to be advised to, or because they already know and it's indicated within their collective agreement, can then be able to consult and approach the labor commissioners for further administrative labor issues, steps to take course.
Okay. I was just about to ask, when you mentioned the administrative process that is likely to take place should the parties not comply to the processes and procedures. I just wanted to find out, at this point in time, can you talk a little bit more on the administrative processes, or can we reserve that for another time?
I think the labor commissions was here and they have really explained in detail the processes. So the administrative process that have to take course, it's the process of conciliation and arbitrations. So that have already been extensively explained. So what one can really advise is that should there be difficulties in reaching an agreement, or one of the party did not honor a dispute, resolutions that emanated from their collective agreement, or a collective agreement in a particular sector does not have how to deal with that, then they are to approach the Labor Commission for the process of conciliation and arbitrations to take place.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We have a caller on the line. It's our regular, anytime from Tumip. Good afternoon, anytime. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing fine in the way, madam.
I'm very well, thank you. How would you like to add your voice to this conversation today?
Okay. Before I add my voice, I'd like to greet the panel there. Yeah. I feel a little bit uncomfortable with the situation of employees within this country. I think Madam Aone and also the other panel member there will agree with me on this particular concern. As a regular caller on People's Parliament, and we read in the printed media, the newspapers about labor issues, especially the employees, they are not protected under the umbrella of the Ministry of Labor when it comes to the labor agreements. especially on the wages, salaries and wages. And also unfair dismissals. Let me be practical in this regard. The Chinese that are employing our own brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, the peanuts that they are being paid in this critical economic environment that we are finding ourselves in. That's when I want to pose the question that does the Ministry of Labor not have the power to approach these brothers of ours from China that no, according to the Labor Act, when it comes to the salaries, at least you should pay the employees up to this amount. But they are paying them the 400, 500. Security companies also less than 2,000, maybe it's 1,300. Now I want the representatives from the Ministry of Labor. How do they have their mandate on this? What is their power there to make sure that these Chinese people, they are paying our brothers and sisters reasonable, wages or salaries? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anytime. I'm
All right.
sure your questions, your question is clear, and we'll throw it to Ms. Mjanima. I'm sure she'll do justice.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the question, my brother. Yes, I could agree that there is a lot of issues happening within the labor market. And I could also attest that we are trying our level best as government to make sure that we address them as much as possible. I have once came in to say that understanding the labor market and the informal sectors as well, comparing it to the number of the labor inspectors we have across the country are not matching. Because later on you have over 61,000 registered business, and you have 57 labor inspectors across Namibia. That is registered. Then you have the huge informal sectors to deal with. But what we are trying to say is that when you have a sector that is regulated, as I have indicated, with a collective agreement, it makes it easier to regulate. But collective agreements are agreements that should be brought about by a specific sector. And we have been calling on sectors to organize themselves. These are trade unions that are responsible for particular sectors, so that they can then make sure that they negotiate with the employers to come up with collective agreement. On the side of government also, we realize that there is a need to have in Namibia a minimum wage. And therefore, that's why last year the minister have appointed wage commissioners that have to do research, consultations, and come up with a report of proposals of what should be a minimum wage in Namibia. Is it viable or not? So the report has been submitted, and it's currently being with the ministers and being analyzed for further handling. I think that will address the issues of telling anybody, not only Chinese, but I always to say, when we speak about the labor market, we don't pinpoint one, because for us who go in the field and really do the inspection, realize that even ourselves are also culprit of mistreating our own people. And many of us know that. So therefore, in the sector where there is no minimum wage articulated, it's difficult telling a person, you must pay only 500, not 400, because as a labor inspector, I can only look at what is legally there. I cannot then decide a wage in my head, but educate my Namibian people to say, when you are negotiating for wage, negotiate for the wage that is value for the service you are providing, if that sector does not have a minimum wage. and that is one thing. The second is in the sector that my brother also referred to, the security. Yes, that we know, and that we work on them because we do inspection in the security sector. Last month, we had a meeting with all the security company within the north, in the area of Oshakati and Ondangwa, and that we have started a campaign. It was me, myself, and the minister. We started that campaign to make sure that we address the issue of securities, the issue of low pays, the issue of not complying with the collective agreement that stipulated the minimum wage for securities. And that is how we work to make sure that we address this issue. So, and that one would say, why would they start with the north? It's because according to our report, we realized the bigger area that also then have some of more complaint and some of the arbitration award that emanated from that particular sector. And that's why we decided to start with that area to make sure, because that is where some of the issues are emanating from. So, yes, we also picked up that our Namibian people are operating sometimes in harsh conditions in terms of occupational safety and health, and we also to make sure that we address them as we go. My call to our Namibian people is, and I'm calling to my brother also, to consult us directly. We have the SMS line, which is 6111, is a 6111, where one can notify us. They can email me, they can call. Our information are on the ministry webpage, so that we can be able to tackle these cases individually, because that's the bestest way to deal with the situation. Okay. Yes. I think with that I have addressed the question. I might not address it collectively, but I think I have did justice to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anytime. I hope you are satisfied with Ms. Njanima's response to your question. We have a caller on the line, Maseru from Windhoek.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Maseru. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, I just want to talk on the issue of the agreement they are talking. Like in the construction, we see that people are suffering in construction. There are no contract which people sign. Maybe for those other companies like maybe Mara and Robert, but for the subcontractors who are contracted by other companies to do the work, if you are working for such a person, you are told when you come to look for employment there, you are told, okay, your amount per hour, for example, maybe they say is $50. Okay, and how many hours you are working? You start working, and maybe or before you do that, you are told you will only get the salary when the house, for those who are building houses, sometimes they say when that particular house is finished is when you can get money. But at the end of the day, how are you going to survive, in that period while you are waiting for your money? And sometimes maybe you are able to work. You are going to work up to that time the house is completed. But now when it comes to payment, you are not being paid the amount you have agreed. If you were supposed to pay to get 8,000, you will end up getting 3,000 or so. So what is the Ministry of Labor doing? Because they have to reach out to help the people who are on the ground on how they can negotiate their contract. Because mostly some they just negotiate verbally, and at the end of the day you suffer. You don't get the money you're supposed to be paid. Thank you.
Okay, Maseru, thank you for that question. Ms. Aune, I think I would throw this over to you once more.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I realize we need to continue educating more. The issue with the contract is that the Labor Act itself does not call or demand that a contract of employment should be reduced to writing, because we cater even for informal economy, and you can't really expect people in informal economy to write contract. Though when we go out to do inspection or educate, we really advise people to have even one page, a written contract. The issue is the construction sector, it's having a very clear, it's one of the collective agreement that really make our job easier when we are doing inspection, because it's very clear. Rates, conditions are very clear. Even in terms of occupational safety and health, it's very straightforward. I think what we need to understand, and our people, is that they need to understand documentations pertaining to wage and condition of employment that are within a particular sector, so that when they come to negotiate to the tables, they come prepared. The other issue is that our offices are open really for our people. Even I used to advise people to say, even if you are given a contract of contract of employment in writing, and you want us to help you understand if it is in line with the condition of employment of that particular sector, come to us before you sign it. The brother also raised the issue of subcontract. Now, the Labour Act speaks of employee and employer. Now, a contractor, a main contractor and a subcontractor are all contractors. So therefore, between what happens between the two of them, we don't have the power to dwell in it. And therefore, if one feels that they are not treated nicely or accordingly of what they have agreed, one can approach the Labour Commission. Yet the inspectors deals with an employer and employee issues. Now, we had a meeting, I think is at the beginning of this year, or is it at the beginning of this year, with most of the subcontractor.
Maybe before, please hold on to that thought.
Okay.
We have a caller on the line.
All right.
Harold from Belfast.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Harold. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very good. And how are you doing, panelists?
We're doing very well, thank you. How would you like to add your voice to the conversation this afternoon?
Yeah, I just want to contribute on that labor sector. Yeah, we're really having a big problem in our Namibia, which is now coming from the labor departments. We are having like what you call them as arbitrators and all those things. And those, they are dealing with the big companies that's having like a lawyers, and they don't have anything, they don't have any, they don't know anything about just to approach the lawyer with a big company, and you are there, and you are coming by yourself, which means your case is only getting like there and be mistreated. And anything that, when it comes to labor, to be honest, I'm always every day want to cry. Because if something happened wrongly on the labor department, it's killing the whole country the way it is today. When you go in the street, the people are stealing from left to right because there's no more work and there's no safe security in the labor departments. And employment department there's no work in Namibia, which means above 80% people now they are already in the streets, which means now people are killing each other day by day because they don't have anything on the tables. And when you come to that, if you don't have any very good well planned on the labor departments or the proper procedures in that department, you end up like there are consequences that is coming is what we are having on the table today. And you end up seeing the leadership in the overall country, they're like arresting a person who steals herself. How can you arrest a person which is under a push factor to do something like that instead of solving the problems? I already come up with a solution and say, my brothers, in the country overall, if you want to solve such a problem, you have to know that you must have a average living standard, which is the pay supposed to start with 15,000. Less than that, you are wasting time because the cost of living is...
Harold?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interject there. I'd like to just make sure that I have your concern clean.
Yes.
Clear. So what you are saying is it more like a contribution and not a question. Are you saying that there isn't much awareness for the public as far as the labor processes are concerned, or do you maybe want to clarify? Perhaps I didn't get you quite there.
Yeah, I just want to clarify and say and telling and give like an idea how to solve the whole problem. You understand? Because that of the way people are right now are are living because of employment and everything that's going in the labor department is the one that causing a lot of problem on our system, which means the solution there is only just to say 15 minimum wage, and if the person doesn't work, must get 5,000. If you are not doing that, the problem will rise every day.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that contribution, Harold. It's highly appreciated.
Welcome.
All right. There you have it, Namibia. You too can come through and have your contributions and questions and concerns shared with the experts in the studio. We are calling you our viewers, and for those that are following or would like to follow the program, you can do so through our social media platforms. On Facebook, we are at Ministry of Information and Communications Technology, Republic of Namibia, or you can also follow the discussion on our YouTube channel, and our handle there is MICT Namibia. Alternatively, you can call in the studio like our 3 previous callers and share your contributions, questions, and concerns. Ms. Mjanima, before Harold called, you were onto something. It's okay now to continue. I'm sorry for interjecting.
Thank you. I was really just highlighting to say that the issue of subcontractors and contractors, I think we had a meeting with the minister and most of the subcontractors in commerce that came to meet with us and discuss the similar problem that the colleague have raised. Our advice to them was that they need to educate themselves because they're understanding why the collective agreement is not really their document. So we explained that a collective agreement is your document within the sector. Study it and very much understand it so that when you negotiate with the main contractor, you negotiate on the amount that really will also enable you as a subcontractor to remunerate your employees according to the agreement. Because when the inspector of labor come, they will not look at you are a subcontractor. They will look at the fact that you have employed this employee and therefore you are supposed to remunerate them accordingly. So what I'm trying to say is that I think we need, yes, I agree with also the previous caller that we need to continue to do more education session. We need to educate, especially our people, to discuss their wages before accepting, because we understand it's the current situations, it's poverty that will force a person to agree to a wage that is not up to standard or so acceptable. But we need to make sure at the beginning that we really negotiate for what is it, especially in the sector that are not remunerated, do not have a collective agreement. While we are waiting for government to finalize the issue of minimum wage, that will really, as even the labor inspectors are looking forward to, because we know it will resolve many of our obstacles that we go through when we are enforcing the law. So yes, we know of the situation as well in the construction sector. We know that also companies struggles to make sure that the PPEs are provided as expected. But we do routine inspection as well in the construction sectors, and we address those issues as we come. I think last year alone we have issued order of closures for, I think, two construction companies in Oshakati, and they have to correct those measures before they start. It's only that when we do this, we look at it as our work. So we don't go out all the time and say, we closed company A, we closed company B and C and D. But we are working toward to make sure that we address those matters. So I will continue calling on to say, notify us of those ones specific so that we can make sure that they are dealt with in accordance with the law.
All right. Briefly put there. Thank you, Ms. Mjanima. We have a call on the line. Monde from Windhoek. Good afternoon, Monde. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We are doing fine. How would you like to add your voice to this conversation?
I want to give a suggestion how to solve some unemployment crisis that we're facing in Namibia.
Okay. Please go
because
ahead.
You don't solve that problem. You solve that problem first before you solve the problem of wages. People have to be employed, then you now come to the table to talk about the wages. Namibia has a very small population that people don't supposed to be unemployed in Namibia. Namibia can be turned into industrial country. We have the land. The youth that are getting out of, maybe dropping out of grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, they can be a factory workers. They can be a machine operators. So we should stop. Our government should make a policy that's favorable for investors to come into this country and bring in investment, bring in factories, then we become exporters of products. And in that situation, our government will now sit down with the people and say, okay, 2-3 years you have been able to operate and you have gone the market. Let's discuss now on the issue of wages. We don't have the companies. We don't have people employing. So the little one that employing, they take advantage because a lot of people are looking for a job and they pay peanut. So the problem here is the policy of the government, not making it favorable for industries to come to Namibia. And what we have is these Chinese people coming here to sell. That is a waste. It's like a waste. Here is like a dumping site where they bring something to sell here. South Africa brings something to sell here. And what happened? They take the money back home again. And the country is broke. We need to have a manufacturing in this country whereby we manufacture and export and foreign currency. Then in that situation, we can be able to now tell the people, listen, this is what you have to pay, this is what you have to pay. Right now, we are zero.
Okay, thank you, Monde. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much.
All right. I think Monde is just alluding to the fact that for like foreign investors, when they come in, I think he means that we need to venture more into manufacturing so that we sell value-added products as opposed to just exporting raw materials or resources. He added his contribution to this topic, so it's noted, and we continue with the conversation. Unless my guests, you would like to say something to what Mr. Monde has just alluded to.
I just wanted to add to what Mr. Monde said, that yes, the ministry have a mandate of coordinating employment creations. And I think in ensuring that we carry out our mandate accordingly, last month we had a retreat, ministerial management retreat on employment creations, where we have invited stakeholders to come and make presentations on issues that are addressing employment creations. So yes, we are analyzing and finalizing our report that we will be able to approach government and indicate to government and propose recommendations on the best way to deal with employment creations. Also, we took note of the inputs, and yes, we know we are in the course to make sure that it's addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
The inputs
We have
and
another
advice.
caller on the line, Simon from Windhoek. Good afternoon, Simon. How are you? Hello, Simon. Can you hear us?
How are you doing?
Hi, we are fine, thanks. How are you? Simon, can you hear?
How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Kindly switch off your TV set or radio so that you can hear us. We are hearing you intermittently.
Sorry, question. Simon, how are you, ma'am?
Simon, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, please have your make your contribution.
Yes, I have a question. First, I want to start with a question.
Okay.
Regarding the issue of security guards, and because those guys, they are working poor condition and
Conducive.
protections. Did you hear me?
Simon, you are saying that you want to speak on security guards and their harsh conditions they work in, or unconducive environments that they work in?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Because you can find some places there's no guardhouse, there's no what, and also their salary is not proper.
Okay.
I want to find out about the minimum wage for security for this year. Because now, if you look at this now, 7 years, not receive any minimum wage. What happened with the Ministry of Labour? What they are doing?
Okay. Simon, I'd just like to ensure that I have your question clear. So you would like to know about the minimum wage for security guards, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, Simon. We've taken note of your question. You can go back to your TV set or radio and listen. The experts in the studio will do justice to your question. Mr. Amkwa, maybe you can take this one.
Yes, thank you very much for the caller. I really appreciate the caller's question. The issue, we can take the answer from the collective, minimum collective agreement for security sector, which we were just busy alluded to. And it is clearly outlined the minimum wage per hour, the starting. So it's clearly stated that the hourly minimum rate for the security, who is the new or the entry level, who is just to start the employment with no experience, it's $80.75, and who have experience for more than 1 year, it's $10. It starts from $10. So that is actually the minimum. Maybe the caller should just acquaint himself with the gazetted collective minimum wage in security. So basically, that's what is the collective agreement in security sector.
Okay. Ms. Mjanima would like to add on to that.
Yes, I just want to tell the caller that yes, it's true, the collective agreement in the security sector require review. As you have indicated, it has been long that way, and we have, as a ministry, notified the sector, which is employers and the union representing the security sector's employee. We have notified them that they need to come together and make sure that they discuss and review the collective agreement, and if they are not agreeing, then approach the Ministry of Labour to facilitate the discussions. So that is what we are waiting for. What we do as government, only gazette it so that it become enforceable for us. So, but the discussion has to be done within the sector itself. But yes, we have notified as a ministry.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Amkwa, what are the duties of the parties of the collective agreements over their members?
Yes, thank you very much. The collective agreement is concluded by the parties, the trade unions, and the employers' representative. And upon the conclusion, the application of this collective agreement is not a straight one. So it does not mean simply because the parties have agreed now and gazetted and signed or endorsed the collective agreement, does not mean that the employees or the other employers where they are covered by this collective agreement, they already have the knowledge and also experience to implement this agreement. So it's their duty of the employers to educate their members, and also the trade union to educate their members about this agreement. So it's also including to capacitate them, to capacitate them, to give them more training in order to understand, and also to understand in order to ensure the compliance and the enforcement of this arbitration, collective agreement. So we are urging the trade union and also the employers to make sure that they communicate to the widest extent this collective agreement to their members, in order to make sure that we increase the coverage in terms of the understanding when it comes to this collective agreement.
All right. Ms. Janima, earlier on you've alluded to the wage orders. I'd like to know, does the wage order in domestic sector also prohibit work of children?
It's a big guess, yes. It does prohibit child labor. You know, child labor is prohibited in all sectors of economy, and in Namibia, including domestic sector, as per the Chapter 2 of the Labor Act, which speak about fundamental right and protection, as well as specific on prohibition of child labor. So within Chapter 2 of the Labor Act really articulate of which particular age that a child should not be employed, which is 14. And after one turns 14, and you want to employ that child at the age of 16, then you should approach the Minister of Labor to indicate that, okay, I want to employ Aune who is 15, but specifying your specific job that you want to provide. And then the minister, once satisfied himself, then will be able to approve. But the domestic works are prohibited until the child is 18. You are not even required to write to minister to say, Aune is 17 and I want to employ her as a domestic worker. And that is clearly stipulated even in the wage order of domestic sector, as the same as in the Labor Act, that a child under the age of 18 should not be employed as a domestic worker.
Okay. I have a concern, a public concern, or rather request. They would like us to clarify, Mr. Amkwa, the rates you've given earlier. I think you said 80.75. Is that an hourly rate, or can you also just please how do I put it? Yes, maybe you can just quickly highlight them, clarify as to whether they are hourly rates or what rates we were referring to.
Yeah, that basically it's an hourly rate.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an hourly rate which starts from the new security guard who just entering to start. It's starting with the hourly rate of $80.75, and the one with experience is the one with $10 hourly rate.
Sorry, it's a bit, I'm not sure whether it's just me or the public also. So a security officer who's not experienced, who's just entering the market, is 80.75 per hour.
Yes.
And the one who's experienced is $10.
Yes.
$10 more or $10 less, because now it's 80 for the inexperienced and 80, or maybe it's me who's not getting it.
8.75, it's $80
okay.
Per hour.
Okay, all right.
And then $10.
Okay.
The one with the experience.
All right.
With exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Me and Amkwa are coming to look for job as security to you. I have experience, he doesn't have. So him, the rate you will allocate to him is $8.75.
Yes.
And the one you will allocate to me per hour, it's then the $10.
different.
So because you have to recognize my experience.
Yes.
Yes.
As per the other sectors, indeed. All right. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you, my studio guests. We've run out of time. Time is never enough when we are having the most fun. I'd like to thank you both for honestly taking time off your busy schedules and come and educate the Namibian nation. As the callers have alluded to, we still need more awareness done, but I can testify that Ministry of Labor is doing the most, and for that we highly appreciate. Now, Namibia, that is all the time we had for today's discussion. Join us again tomorrow as we discuss another topic of national concern here at the Government Information Center. From myself, Hileni Felepe-Samunyela, and the entire GIC production crew is goodbye.